Welcome to a very special edition of the Heron Outlet, live from right around the world, the other side of the world. Jonathan Tannenwald joins us from the FIFA Women's World Cup, but you probably know him covering the MLS for the Philadelphia Union at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Ian, it's my pleasure. I think, some people obviously know I cover the Union, but I've been covering women's soccer for just as long and almost really longer I've been doing that for almost 20 years now. And it's really something that I've enjoyed doing for a long time. It's a big part of how I've sort of made my name as a soccer journalist out there. And the World Cup's always the pinnacle.
So thrilled for you to be out there, really, with this World Cup, which has been a historic World Cup in so many regards, from now crowning a brand new champion that we're going to have, with the Final Four all being newcomers to this real, I guess, level of it, with the exception of Sweden, I guess. But very exciting. Also very exciting, Inter Miami playing in their first semifinal, which is a little bit interesting given where they are in the U.S. Open Cup. They qualified for the U.S. Open Cup semifinal a couple months ago. Now they find themselves in the Leagues Cup semifinal against the Union, which will happen this Tuesday from Subaru Park in Chester. And while you'll still be in Australia, which is a little bit of a time difference for you, when you found out this is going to be Messi coming to Philadelphia, what was your first reaction?
Well, my first reaction was I was at an Australian rules football game with some friends as the Union game was ending. And my first reaction was to excuse myself, put on some headphones, and jump on the post-game Zoom call on the stadium Wi-Fi for the fans and listen into what Jim Curtin had to say. And I wrote a little something about that might be online by the time your listeners hear this. It's not yet by the time we're talking. About what it means, because Jim Curtin's big one-liner out of it was pleading with Union fans to not sell their tickets. And this caused a bit of a stir because some people thought he was right. And some people said, how dare you tell me what to do with my money when I can make a couple hundred or even a couple $1,000, and pay the rent for a month and a half and so on and so forth. And my reaction was, I don't care what you do with your money, guys. That's up to you. But in no other Philadelphia sport would this be a conversation. Because Philadelphians like to tell themselves, not just other people, that they are the most passionate, devoted, and loyal people in the history of all humanity. Your listeners can probably tell both by my words and by my accent that I'm not from Philadelphia originally. I'm from Washington, D.C. originally. And I've lived in Philadelphia for over 20 years now. So I've been there long enough. I'm not totally an outsider. I just sort of like to cast myself as one. Eagles fans would never dare sell their tickets to a playoff game or to the Chiefs or Giants or Cowboys coming to town. Phillies fans, my paper did a piece last year about how the World Series at Citizens Bank Park was so expensive that it was cheaper to fly to Houston, get a hotel and buy a ticket to a game there. And people actually did that. The Sixers, a devoted Sixers fan is not going to give up a ticket to a game against the Celtics or Steph's Warriors or LeBron's Lakers or whatever, So I just find
or the Miami Heat.
Union. Yeah, at this point, but I just find it interesting that the Union aren't in that club. And yeah, it's the Leagues Cup. We all thought it was not going to be a big deal. I've been calling it a cash grab all along. Because it is. We all thought it wasn't going to get to this point. The Union are absolutely jacking the ticket prices through the roof of this game exorbitantly, and it's not right. One of my colleagues is writing about that from back home. But if maybe Philadelphia sports fans are actually a little bit like everybody else, that might not be such a bad thing for humanity's sake,
It took 8 minutes for this to be a sellout from the time that it was put on sale for Philadelphia to sell it out. So the likelihood, as we saw with Dallas, right? Dallas hadn't sold out in forever long. We saw with the first game against Cruz Azul, even when Messi didn't start, that it was exorbitant to get in. And things had sort of calmed down a little bit, more or less, around here. But what is it about the Messi, Busquets, Alba, road game that is getting, almost like the Beatles on tour, getting people so excited.
Well, I'll say this in Philadelphia's defense: they sell out almost all their home games.
Right.
They haven't for the League's Cup because it's the League's Cup, but in the regular season, they sell out almost all their home games. So there was always going to be enough demand. I think what it says is that Miami's not going on the road a lot so far. They're not playing in DC this year, which is a huge soccer market. There's people from Washington trying to come up. They're playing at Red Bull Arena on August 26th. I might go to that. I don't know yet. But, that was the one immediately where the ticket prices went the highest because it was New York. And I think they're playing in LA later this year too, if my memory's right.
Yep.
And Chicago. And then Dallas, Philly. These are the big cities in the country, right? These are the big population centers. It says that Philadelphia's got got more soccer fans than it thinks. I've always known that, but some other people haven't. I am going to be interested to see I see from afar. Obviously, I'll be watching online. For people who are interested in knowing, I believe it's a 9 a.m. kickoff Wednesday morning here in Australia. It's a 14-hour time, 14 hours ahead of the U.S. East Coast.
You are joining me from tomorrow right now.
Yes.
Like amazing.
Correct. I'll be interested to see what the atmosphere is like. How many people are rooting for the Union? How many people are rooting for Messi? And how many Philly sports fans who don't follow the Union, what they do? Because there was a little bit of a similar phenomenon with Wrexham a couple of weeks ago when they came in and played the Union's reserves, and the stadium was all red shirts and not blue shirts. Because Rob McElhenney's from Philly.
Right.
He presents himself as a Philadelphia sports fan, but doesn't exactly come to Subaru Park very
often.
Right. So these folks, a lot of people in the town would rather pay a ton of money to go watch an English or a Welsh team than their own local club. Now, I don't love Subaru Park's location. It has nothing to do with the city of Chester. It's because there's almost no public transit at the stadium whatsoever. Right. So a lot of people in the city can't get there easily. It could be in Villanova. It could be in some highfalutin mainline suburb with no public transit. It would be the same complaint. But they fill the place, and they'll obviously fill the place for this game. And, some people wanted to complain the game ought to be moved to the Eagles Stadium so they could go. And it was a little bit of my reaction to that is my same one as it was with New York and other places, which is this league's been around for 25 years. What about you?
I agree.
And yes, the press box in Chester is tiny. That's for sure. But you don't do that at the last minute. You do that with if Miami comes to Philly in, before August of next year, March, April, May, June, early July, before the NFL preseason gets going, that game you work out in advance to put it to link. Yes, you do that.
Yeah, well, there's been sort of a pushback against that. I guess from here in Miami, there's been the talk that if they make the U.S. Open Cup final and host, they would do it at Hard Rock Stadium instead of Drive Pink Stadium, which is a much bigger venue, holds 65,000, right, as opposed to Drive Pink, which only holds 22,000. Dallas talked about it with Jerry World as opposed to where they play in Frisco. So this is a growing theme. I don't think that Philadelphia is necessarily unique in that regard. But talk to me from the standpoint of a team that has really dominated the East since the pandemic era, I would say, that has really been one of the predominant teams in MLS, just coming off an MLS Cup final that they perhaps were the better team in, and a follow-up season where they're playing just as not good, if not better, in that regard. That they are sort of taking a back seat in this, that they are the overshadowed one. That doesn't happen often with the Union, at least in MLS circles.
Oh, yes, it does. It happens all the time.
Okay.
Before I get to that, let me just say real quick, for people who don't know, for your listeners, the Eagles and the Union get along quite well in a way that I would say that Steve Ross and MLS do not, which is part of the problem, as we know. That's no secret to anybody in Miami, and a lot of people around the rest of the country know it because of Steve Ross's big influence with bringing European games here. So anyway, to your point, how the Union have done it. In this league, in MLS, if you have a genuine, serious tactical plan and you know what you're doing and you go out and sign players to fit it and spend some decent money at the top end to make sure you've got guys who put the ball in the net, you're going to win games. Because there's still a lot of teams in this league that go out and sign a bunch of star players and ask them to play jazz music together and hope it works. Now, why do I say the Union get overshadowed?
Right.
Because they don't have a really seriously marketable star player who drives television ratings on English language national networks or Spanish language national networks. Their stadium is small. It's not downtown. It doesn't have a swimming pool in the luxury suites. You can guess where I'm going with this.
You're going to get us all in trouble.
But
today.
it will be easily, I think, the best team in MLS that Miami has faced yet under Messi. And easily the team most capable of beating them so far. And they've got a number of guys who have played against Messi before. 4, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Joaquin Torres when he was a kid, Jose Andres Martinez with Venezuela, and Andre Blake and Damian Lowe with Jamaica.
Right.
Doesn't matter, because that doesn't mean you can beat him. I don't think any of them have. But they're going to do what they do. And Martinez is going to crunch somebody without caring who it is, whether it's Busquets or Messi or whatever. And then, the biggest factor to me, actually, for the Union side is Julian Carranza, who you guys know, obviously, he used to play in Miami. He's got a calf injury that he suffered in the last game. I don't know what state he's going to be in. Because he hasn't gotten injured very often.
It seems like throughout the Leagues Cup, which you guys have managed very well, that there's been this sort of rotation between Julian Carranza, Uri, and Daniel Gazdag that have sort of, played musical chairs with each other. That's the main 3. So let's talk the game, actually. How likely are the 3 of them to play together? And what does that look like in terms of an attack that Miami gave up 4 against Dallas, returned very well against Charlotte, but they've been a little inconsistent in that regard?
If all 3 are healthy, they're all playing. Gazdag's been injured. Carranza's been injured. Uri's been out of form and needs to fix that because he's their biggest money guy. They're a counter-pressing team. Their sporting director, who wrote the tactical playbook, came out of the Red Bull system in Europe because he ran Salzburg's youth academy for years and they were really good. He was at Hoffenheim before that. They will play either a 3-5-2, which they've gotten very good at, or a narrow diamond 4-4-2, which is how they played for years, and then people figured it out and they had to come up with something different. I don't know which. You got the front 3. You've got Martinez as the fulcrum. You've got Glesnes and Elliott and Lowe if they play with 3 in the back. You've got Kyle Wagner on the left side, who's the best left back in the league and has been for the last couple of years. You've got in that engine room, you might have Alejandro Bedoya. I don't know. It's some irony if he would finally get to play against Messi now, because he had that. He very famously, South Florida native, by the way, as you know, he very famously was going to play against Messi in the 2016 Copa America Centenario and missed the game because of yellow card accumulation. And now he's injured. And will this be his shot? I don't know. And the rest of the engine room is either Jack McGlynn or Leon Flack or Jesus Bueno, Venezuelans playing really well lately. And McGlynn, if they need to go a little more attacking, is a young American kid from Long Island. Well, not quite Long Island. Just west of Long Island, still in Queens, technically in the city. Great, smart, dazzling left foot. 8/occasional 10, but more than 8. And Andre Blake, of course, behind.
Andre Blake and Drake Callender, both goalkeeper of the year finalists last year for MLS. So definitely a great battle there. I look at the back 3 that Philadelphia Union have really established in this tournament. It includes Damian Lowe, who is perhaps one of the biggest catalysts in necessary departures from Inter Miami at the beginning of this year to facilitate all the moves that they've done now. Damian's really found his mold here later on, I guess, in this Leagues Cup, where he didn't find it earlier in the season in the league's play. What has he provided for the Union that could be effective for them to possibly play this three at the back?
Or he did the CONCACAF Champions League. He was very good too.
Right.
The Union needed this past offseason to go out and sign depth guys who knew how to play in this league. Two of the three were busts, which was surprising. Ernst Tanner usually bats better than that. Andres Pereira was a bust. They loaned him out to NYCFC. Joaquin Torres has largely been a bust. He's shown flashes of being very good, but not enough. And Lowe's been the big hit. Been exactly what they wanted him to be. Veteran guy, knows his place, knows what he's doing, playing on a really good team, knows how to fit into it, can help them play a three or can play in the four so that they're not running out the same two guys every single game. The reason why they won the Supporters' Shield in 2020, fluky year, pandemic, etc., but the number one reason is that they had three starting caliber center backs and they rotated them all so the guys didn't get tired. And Jim Curtin likes to say he hates doing that, but too bad, because sometimes rotating players for its own sake, he said, being at the Women's World Cup, is a virtue and not a vice. And we can spend another hour on that if we want to, but I don't think it's necessary right now.
So I look at this Philadelphia team, and you're right. This is the best team that Messi's Miami has ever faced. Earlier in the year, it was a 2-0 defeat at home in Drive Pink against two very different teams, right? I mean, different manager for Miami. There were only 4 starters in that game that will start against Philadelphia, that being Drake, DeAndre Yedlin, Sergei Kristoff, and perhaps Joseph Martinez. Everybody else will be different. What didn't work for Philadelphia then that they've evolved to now that will be more effective for them against this kind of unknown iteration of Miami that they didn't expect at the beginning of the year?
I don't know, honestly. I don't know.
Okay.
It's really, this is going to be just a class to put the ball down on the field, let him play, see what happens.
Yeah. And this tends to be a little bit more to your point at the beginning of this conversation, where Philadelphia is almost over-prepared at times. And this Miami team has just been, well, we have better players, or the 3 best players on the field, so we're just going to let them do their thing. I guess the big fear from a Miami perspective in this is that it's a Miami 70% possession, but Philly 2-3-0 because the counterattack is just absolutely dominant. And it doesn't matter how much possession or how much breakdown you have. Philly's just going to throw those 3 guys out, and those 3 against Miami's back 4 is just overwhelming. Do you get the sense that this is how this is going to kind of play out?
I mean, Philly has minority possession all the time, so they're comfortable with it. That's what pressing teams do. They play against the Red Bulls, and the ball just sits there. Nobody has it, you know? Yeah, sure. That's Jim, and Jim said it. He said we're not going to have a ton of the ball, and we're comfortable with that.
Right.
And then to me, it's just, can the Union finish their chances? Will they have the home crowd behind them? Can they not foul Messi 25 yards from goal? And then get some good luck, and we'll see.
Last question for you, Jonathan. And again, everybody follow Jonathan's work at the Philadelphia Inquirer, both with his coverage of the Philadelphia Union and what he's doing right now, joining us very thankfully from halfway around the world at the Women's World Cup in Australia right now, where he will be covering both the semifinals coming up and the final. And so, Jonathan, I guess I just ask, Messi has scored in every game that he's played so far. In some circles, people have said that Sergio Busquets has even been more effective, just simply because he hasn't been pressured the same way. That changed a little against Dallas. Dallas was a one mold of a team that looked a little bit effective in how they played the two. If you're Jim Curtin, or if you're, I'm not going to put you in that spot, but if
Right.
you're thinking of a way of stopping Messi to not score, make him facilitate to Robert Taylor or to Joseph Martinez, and to pressure Sergio Busquets finally, how are you doing that?
Probably with a 3-5-2 because it jams the middle a little more. And it gives Martinez some support, so he's not doing all the chasing single-handedly. Jose Andres Martinez is a brilliant player. Yes, he makes these big tackles and he gestures wildly and he flaps at the ref and all this stuff. He's an outstanding player because he gets the tackle in and he gets the ball and then he half a second later plays it forward. That's a skill. That's a real serious skill. And Joseph knows it because they play together in Venezuela, and I'm sure that Martino has seen it plenty over the years up close and from afar. And so it's about that engine room and jamming up that middle of the field, make them get it wide, and then they'll probably play Nathan Herron on the right wing instead of Olivier Mbaye, with a little more defensive reinforcement in there. And then, as I said, just put the ball down and let him play and see. I've watched bits and pieces from here because MLS Season Pass does indeed work around the world as they said it would. But I confess I genuinely don't know what's going to happen in the game.
I don't think any of us really do. I think that this is like the first real test of Messi and against a quality, like not even quality, like a very good MLS side on the road. This is going to be the first time that we've really seen what that's going to look like.
That sounds right to me. Yeah, I mean, Dallas was not what this will be.
Right. And they gave up 4 goals against Dallas, right? So, and they were down 2 goals twice throughout the course of that game. So I think it's definitely one of the most exciting. I mean, it is the most exciting game that we've seen from Tata Martino and Messi and Busquets and now Alba that we've seen thus far, and the most that it's going to look. Please make sure that you follow Jonathan as he covers the rest of the Women's World Cup from Australia now. He's at the goalkeeper on Twitter. Make sure you follow him and all of his work that he does for the Philadelphia Inquirer. A tremendous job that he does both covering the Union and women's soccer. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us on the Heron Outlet today.
Ian, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.